My boyfriend doesn't want to marry me because I'm an immigrant plus update. I, 29F, went to the United States as a graduate student from Indonesia 7 years ago. I met my partner, 30 years old, a few months after I relocated, and we've been together ever since. My partner is a citizen of the United States. We had a serious talk about where our relationship was going when I graduated. I said unequivocally that I wanted to marry and have children in the future. My boyfriend had similar views. I recall asking him whether he saw it happening with me because I didn't want to be in a relationship that didn't have a future. He assured me he loved me and that we were absolutely on the right track. We've been dating for 7 years as of last week. We discussed marriage on occasion, but we were both preoccupied with our different professions, so the moment didn't seem right. However, my firm just indicated that there is a possibility that my department's job would be outsourced. I'm on an H-1B visa, temporary worker, which means I need to start searching for employment as soon as possible if I want to remain in the U.S. I brought it up last week, on our anniversary. I asked him whether he felt it was a good time to consider getting married, since it would also assist with my visa concerns. He seemed to be ready to vomit. After considerable probing, he admitted that he didn't intend on marrying me until I was able to get a green card, permanent resident, in the United States. I was perplexed since he'd never addressed it before. His reasoning was that he didn't want to be used as a visa mule, his words, not mine, by me, and that he wanted to ensure that I married him because I loved him, not because it was a ticket to staying in the U.S., which can only happen if I receive a GC. It took me some time to digest what he said, and I asked him if he was comfortable with moving to Indonesia with me, which he was not. I didn't respond properly and had to leave since I couldn't cope with what had just transpired. I'm still in a state of shock. I began dating him because he was the most attentive, kind, and giving guy I'd ever encountered. I now feel like I squandered 7 years of my life. While the visa restrictions are undoubtedly a concern, I did not date him with the purpose of turning him into my safety net. I can't believe that after over a decade of dating, he still doesn't know what type of person I am. This relationship seems like it's coming to an end, and that hurts. It's really painful. Update. I spent a few days to gather my thoughts before approaching him with the desire to speak with him. He concurred. He turned out to be insecure about earning less than I did for quite some time. His buddies have apparently made fun of our relationship, dubbing me the sugar mother since I cover the majority of the bills. Until today, he had never told me this. He evidently didn't feel like an equal since our income was so disparate, and he began to suspect that I was merely with him to acquire a PR here quickly. I was stunned. I couldn't believe his acquaintances had duped him into questioning our connection. I reminded him of how he had helped me when I was in graduate school, such as getting me groceries when I didn't have much money, allowing me to stay with him rent-free in my final year of grad school to help me minimize expenses so I didn't have to take out a loan, and allowing me to use his car when I went to interviews. I told him that he did them because he loved me, and that my shouldering the bulk of family expenditures, since I began working, is my way of repaying him for all he did for me back then. He stated he understands what I'm saying, but that he didn't expect me to start earning more than right away. I asked if he'd consider going to couples counseling, as several of you had advised, and he rejected since he didn't believe he was being unreasonable. He said that he desired to be the provider in a relationship and that he didn't feel that way in ours, so there's no turning back until I resigned my job and got another that paid significantly less, which isn't going to happen. To cut a long tale short, we split up. His family is in shock. They were hoping that he would propose soon. For the time being, I'd taken up residence at an Airbnb. To round up this report, here's more excellent news. My firm offered me a comparable position in a different department. However, this is situated in France. Thus, there is a tiny salary cut. I've always wanted to live in Europe, so I accepted this opportunity. I've signed the relocation contract, and I'll be moving there in the next 8-12 weeks. Story 2. Wife cheated many times while we dated, even once for money. The shortened version. My wife and I met in high school, married young, 20, and have been married for about 25 years. On our wedding day, I knew she cheated just once, and that was all she'd acknowledged to. I continued pushing throughout the years because I had a feeling there were more. At the 10th year of our marriage, she confessed to cheating twice before we were married, and at the 14th year, she admitted to cheating 3 times before we were married. At the end of her 20th year, she acknowledged to having done it 4 times before we married, but only kissing. Do you see the pattern? Every now and then, I need to speak about it, and I'm occasionally curious whether she cheated more than once. This often sparks an argument, with her accusing me of being merciless and obsessed. My argument was that she never gave me the chance to make an educated choice about whether or not to marry her. Other details: I was a virgin, and she claimed to be as well, although this was a lie. She couldn't accept it was a lie until 2 years into our marriage, when she confessed to having with all of her lovers. She made me feel awful for having thoughts about our tale shifting over the years. Initially, it was a narrative of a first love that led to marriage. It turned out that I was merely one among many, but she was genuinely my first. I've recently felt the urge to rant, which is why I'm blogging. I gave her an ultimatum: acknowledge everything or we would divorce. She provided no fresh information in her response. I know I'll never know the truth, and I have to accept that, but I want her to tell me more, no matter how humiliating it will be for her. That is the very least she can do. Nota bene. She has always justified her promiscuity as a rebellious phase, claiming that she was a decent girl who had a bad period. And we were both young. She also said that she was molested by her uncle till she was in her 20s. I went to college and actually shared restrooms with women, never doing anything inappropriate except baking cookies with an entrance companion who I considered a friend. I've always suspected she cheated on me while I was abroad, but there's no clear proof. I don't believe she has cheated on me since we were married, and our marriage has been happy except for this problem, which has always remained in the background. I sometimes write messages to myself to rant. Here's the most recent. Clarity might sometimes arrive in the middle of the night. Here are some ideas. Had she told me everything? Probably not, since she refuses to pledge to God, despite the fact that that is precisely what you do when you take an oath. She was using an old-fashioned religious justification, which she knew was false since anybody who takes an oath swears to God. She declined to swear the last time since she wasn't revealing the whole truth. Conclusion: there is more she is lying about that she is aware of. So what now? I know her strategy is to disclose half the truth but leave out the portion. So should I believe she has told me everything? Certainly not. I honestly believe she cheated twice as often as she has confessed. Perhaps she is embarrassed, and I can only hope for the worst. She went to the movies with her sister's ex-boyfriend early in our relationship, just after high school. She described him as her elder brother. I remember her lying about it, but her mother inadvertently informed me about it. When I arrived the following day, the first thing she said was, they didn't touch each other. What? That, I believe, was her tell. Later, she confessed that he wanted to have with her and requested a kiss. She expressed her dissatisfaction and asked him to take her home. I'm assuming she had with him. She revealed partial truths to everyone else, but stopped short of the portion. I'll offer instances if anybody is interested. Wendy's boss was a predator who had with the adolescent females that worked there. I recall her telling me that he attempted to kiss her, but she refused because she wasn't that sort of girl. I have to believe she had with him. She had with an adult neighbor for money, and she could have again to receive a raise. I don't expect adolescents to make sound judgments. The issue was that she was behaving as though we had the same ideals. I'd questioned her earlier in our marriage whether she'd had with another neighbor. She first denied it, but subsequently acknowledged to having with him before we met. I've always assumed she had with him at least once throughout our relationship. He was always on their phone and had stayed the night a couple times. I'm guessing she had with him. Another great-uncle of hers was a jerk. He used to give her money and assist her. He made her uncomfortable a few times, implying that she owed him something, she admitted. Perhaps she had intercourse with him, which would have been legally illegal since she was a teenager and he was most likely in his 70s. But I can see why she would be embarrassed, and I really regret that it happened if it did. Finally, she has a cousin who is our age and used to mistreat her. She recently acknowledged that this cousin assisted her in paying for her prom outfit and also informed her that I would no longer be her boyfriend since I was leaving for college. She most certainly had with him. Again, I apologize for what occurred, but all I want is the truth. Part of this is my responsibility, since she never acknowledged anything to me. She posed a hypothetical inquiry the morning following one of the cheating occurrences. What would you do if I had with another person? I remember saying I'd leave you like it was yesterday. Remember, I was a teenager. Just like that, she asked. Later that day, she informed me that a man she had gone out with the night before had urged her to have, but she refused, telling him to put it away. Of course, it was a lie, but it was an example of how she nearly always stated the truth, but left out the element. Of course, she ultimately confessed to having that night. The same tactic she used with the others, she ultimately confessed to. This is partly my responsibility, since I became enraged as she acknowledged things. Over time, in my rage, I labeled her and I regret it now, and have not addressed her by name since before her second admission, which she confessed in her 10th year of marriage. So she'd rather lie than deal with me calling her names and asking more probing questions. I'm afraid I'll never know the whole truth. Thank you for your time. Please reply if you need any other information. I also have a query that I'd want to have answered by a mature lady, or any other counsel given by a lady. I'm just curious whether my wife's conduct makes sense. Making up a lie about being a virgin. Why? It wouldn't have made a difference. I had a sneaking suspicion she was lying in any case. How many times have you lied? Another thing she does is downplay that she had. I didn't like it. I only enjoyed it with you, for example. It wasn't what you expected. It wasn't like a movie. I never kissed while doing it. So it wasn't passionate. I'd never had it until I met you. We were never nude, and no one has ever seen me naked. I've never seen their penis. I went to a bar after her second admission because I wanted to see another lady nude. I informed her about it. Despite having co-ed bathrooms in college, I was never improper with my floor mates. That's when she claims, no one has seen my breasts, which sometimes irritates me and makes me exclaim, really? Their penises were in your vagina, and I'd rather you show them your breasts than have ual relations with them. Is any of this even slightly plausible, ladies? When I was 14, I wasn't really fond of my hand, but it still felt wonderful. I hope that's not too explicit. Please accept my apologies for the lengthy tirade. I'm in the middle of my life and don't have any siblings, elder mature aunts, or cousins to talk to.